In the city of Los Angeles, criminal investigator Imprint having the opportunity off while lamenting for his dead spouse Rose, which has given him a drinking issue. Anyway, he needs to get back to the station when he hears his child Trent has been captured for getting in a battle. Official Garcia persuades the other person not to squeeze charges, so Imprint gets Trent out and continues to completely chide him. Things have been tense between them since Rose's demise, and it possibly deteriorates when Trent sees Imprint spent his cash on liquor as opposed to filling the vehicle's tank. They choose to take the tram, all things being equal, and on their way there, Trent leaves some cash for blind homeless person Sarge. In the tram, Imprint continues squirming with Rose's ring and chooses to hear Trent's side of the story, permitting them to have a delicate holding second. Out of nowhere, the train grinds to a halt. Simultaneously, a dazzling blue light shows up overhead. Mark checks with the travel laborer named Audrey, who makes sense of there's been a blackout and the radio's down. Then, at that point, something makes the entire underground shake and Audrey gets a message through the radio saying don't check the lights out. At the point when the entire train shakes once more, the gathering chooses to empty, and as they stroll along the railing, they hear strange commotions coming from a higher place. 101. In the interim, Garcia emerges from the washroom and finds the station void with the exception of official Jones, so they glance around and see as the brilliant light outside. Everybody is following the blue gleam with the exception of Sarge, who isn't impacted due to his visual impairment. The underground gathering arrives at the station and attempts to track down a protected course to get away, yet a lady is frantic to get back to her family and attempts to use the stairwell outside. Trent follows her to persuade her to return, and the two of them wind up taking a gander at the light, which makes half of their countenances go dark. Mark sees this and shuts his eyes to get his child to keep him here while the light unexpectedly turns into a bar that removes each individual that checked it out. At the point when Imprint wakes up, he finds the bar came from a Goliath spaceship. Subsequently, Imprint takes Trent back to the tram station and along with Audrey and the couple of survivors, they return to stroll through the passages. There they meet with Garcia, Jones, and Sarge, who join the gathering to search for a protected exit. Garcia likewise gives Imprint a firearm to guard himself. Subsequent to strolling the entire evening, they find a bunch of steps with a window that permits them to see the flying cores going after the spaceship. Jones at last gets a transmission on her radio and requests help, however it's denied in light of the fact that they're going to bomb the city without, mindful on the off chance that there are any survivors left. The spaceship's protections effectively bring down the aviation-based armed forces, and as bombs and falling planes begin stirring things up around town, the passage starts to disintegrate. The gathering promptly takes off, however the obscure survivors wind up dead by the trash. The remainder of the gathering tracks down an opening in the roof, however when they're going to get away, an outsider shows up in the passage to go after them. The animal retains Garcia prior to turning on its light to draw in Trent once more, and Imprint begins taking shots at it until it passes on. Then he protects Garcia, who is astounded by the reality he could inhale inside the animal. Jones contemplates whether the outsiders need them alive, yet at that point, the animal awakens and gets Jones to eliminate her cerebrum. Mark starts shooting again to allow the others an opportunity to get away. This permits the outsider to snatch him by the legs. Fortunately, Audrey has a crisis flare with her and throws it to Stamp, who utilizes it to make the animal step back. A while later he puts it inside the fuel tank of a vehicle that fell into the opening, so when the animal attempts to follow the gathering as they escape, the vehicle detonates and kills it. Presently they're outside. They can see the spaceship sending a monster outsider after them. The gathering starts to take off, however the outsider is excessively close, so Garcia stays behind to delay. Tragically his shots sit idle, and the outsider ingests him with its appendage. Mark, Trent, Audrey, and Sarge notice there are helicopters nearby and attempt to stand out, however the monster outsider unexpectedly obstructs their direction and destroys the helicopters. Then the spaceship's lights start removing the gathering, and since it can't take Sarge, the outsider gets him physically. The monster outsider revisitations of its boat, where it's uncovered that this immense animal is really a Goliath robot being steered by a human-sized outsider. Now that the outsider is finished with the USA, it moves the boat to start reaping different spots. In the meantime, Imprint awakens in a room brimming with bodies and outsider goo. There's one more animal there, which is likewise really a robot, gathering individuals' minds. Mark avoids the limbs to attempt to track down Trent, and when he takes shots at the robot, the outsider chief notification him on his sensors and turns on the bar once more. Every one of the bodies are removed with the exception of Imprint, whose head is gotten by the robot to attempt to get his cerebrum. Mark promptly shoots the arm and falls in an ebb and flow of water that is being ousted from the boat. At the point when he's going to drop out, his leg stalls out on the boat's railing, saving him yet additionally getting injured. Then Imprint moves back inside and finds that the human minds are put inside additional robots to involve them as troopers. The main real living animal here is the commander. Ignorant Jared is following him. Imprint advances further inside, going over decaying bodies and eggs swinging from the roof that appear to have children inside. Out of nowhere Imprint is gone after by one of the limb robots, yet he's saved in the nick of time by Jared, whose eyes are red rather than blue like each and every other light here. There are more adversaries coming, so Imprint follows Jared into one more space as he makes sense of he needs to track down his child. Jared sears Imprint's leg prior to taking him to see Elaine, who is 3 months pregnant yet she's going to conceive an offspring. Elaine makes sense of that when she originally saw the light, she immediately became pregnant. Then again, her significant other Jared became more grounded each time he saw it, permitting him to become safe. At the point when the outsider put his mind in a robot, Jared held his identity. The outsider typically takes the children right from their stomachs, yet Jared saved her from that terrible end. Mark assists Elaine with bringing forth a sound child young lady, yet sadly Elaine bites the dust simultaneously. Jared acknowledges to assist with checking fine Trent in return for Imprint getting the child out of the boat securely. Neither of them sees the child can make her eyes gleam red. In the interim Trent and Audrey awaken to wind up dangling from certain plants on the roof. Trent figures out how to get the other flare from Audrey's pocket and cuts her plant, then he snatches Audrey and tosses her on the steps. He bounces after her and together they begin advancing down, just to find Sarge is dangling from a plant as well. After Jared and Imprint leave the room, the chief finds Elaine's body and starts following the child. Jared first takes Imprint to the ordnance, where he gives him an outsider weapon that associates straightforwardly to his arm's nerve cells. Then, at that point, Jared starts setting up bombs to explode the boat. He additionally utilizes the primary PC to find where Trent is. At that point, the commander appears, so Jared opens an entry to send Trent to the plant room while he remains behind to battle the skipper. In the plant room, Imprint finds Trent bouncing on Sarge's plan to protect him. Another arm gets Audrey, so Imprint bounces on it and cuts it with the outsider's sharp edge Jared gave him. Audrey makes it securely to the floor and the robot falls on top of Imprint, yet he utilizes the sharp edge to polish it off. Meanwhile, the commander overwhelms Jared and leaves him for dead. Jared is just imagining and uncovers he actually has a bomb in his grasp. The chief goes to the plant room and Imprint attempts to go after him. However, the sharp edge unexpectedly quits working, allowing the skipper the opportunity to pursue the child. Sarge impedes him to delay, and he gets injured while Audrey recovers the child. As the commander goes to pursue her and Imprint, Jared at long last actuates the bombs and the boat detonates, crashing in country Laos. The accident is seen by Kinsua and Kanya, who work with the cartel bunch. There are cops in the space attempting to stop the outsider robots yet additionally hoping to capture cartels. So Sua kills one off while official Juana is in the middle of obliterating the robot with a flamethrower. The kin approach the boat and find one of the eggs on the ground, which Kanya takes care of in her pack. Mark, Audrey, and the child have landed securely on account of the outsider goo. Sarge is additionally alive, however scarcely keeping it together due to his injury. While the gathering leaves the boat by bouncing into the stream, the commander additionally awakens alive and starts chipping away at making more robots with human minds. One of these is Trent, who sees his recollections briefly before the programming dominates. After a second, Imprint and the others arrive at the shore, where they catch the kin. As they start quarreling about their goals, Sarge passes on from his injuries. Sua feels awful and acknowledges to take them with them to their camp, where Audrey changes the child, who is developing at a disturbing velocity. While Imprint is occupied cleaning up, Kanya really looks at the item in his pocket and tracks down his identification. Presently the kin believe he's here to spy. Sua assaults Imprint and the two men take part in a savage battle while Kanya attempts to get Audrey far from the child. Mark is holding up well because of his preparation, however Audrey is unpracticed and Kanya effectively overwhelms her. At that point, Juana appears with additional police, so the two battles are intruded on to make an arrangement. Mark vows to help in the event that Sua can take them to a specialist for the child, and a ceasefire is shaped. Sua guides the gathering cautiously through the minefields, and when they stop to camp for the evening, Imprint lets them know how there was just a single genuine outsider on the boat. He contemplates whether the people inside the robots can be liberated like Jared did. A while later, Imprint informs Audrey concerning Rose. The following morning, Imprint is stirred by Juana. Sua promptly saves him by shooting Juana non-mortally, yet when he's going to shoot again to kill him, Audrey stops him. Then, at that point, she keeps an eye on the child, who has turned into a little youngster short-term. The gathering leaves with Juana as their detainee and they come to an old sanctuary, under which the cartels have set up their refuge. Juana is secured in a cell and the youngster is taken to specialist Harper, who affirms the kid is igniting with fever. Harper continues to run a few tests while Imprint contemplates whether he can trust this spot. Sua shows him this was worked during the conflict to guard themselves from the American assaults, so in the event that they can endure the USA they can likewise endure outsiders. Minutes after the fact, Harper reports the kid isn't exactly human. Kanya takes off in frenzy and abandons her pack, permitting Harper to track down the egg. At the point when Kanya attempts to remove the youngster for being the foe, the others stop her, and Imprint educates her concerning the tests he saw, meaning the kid's likewise a casualty. A while later Harper gives a full clarification: the youngster's consistent development has exhausted her whole framework, and she's going to close down. She really wants a bonding, yet Harper doesn't think any about them are viable. Mark shows him his arm and informs him concerning the weapon that was associated with his body, so they choose to attempt with his blood. The following morning, the youngster is sound and indeed, she's likewise developed significantly more. Utilizing the egg Kanya found, Harper runs more tests and finds the blue light that programs their cerebrums is organically viable with human DNA. He thinks the outsiders established people here on Earth as a yield, and each several centuries they return to gather. Anyway, they didn't consider development. Utilizing the egg and the youngster's blood, Harper fosters a serum to be put inside the pillar gun, and the changed light will liberate every one of the robots from the brain control. The gathering starts outfitting themselves for the approaching battle, and Audrey and Kanya go outside to lay out certain snares. At that point, the skipper sends a monster robot to go after Audrey. Kanya enacts one of the snares, yet the bomb is only a scratch for outsider innovation, so she certainly stands out enough to be noticed by taking shots at it. Then, at that point, Kanya runs into the minefield, and as the outsider follows her, it actuates one of the mines. This blast causes more harm, yet obliterating it is as yet adequately not. Kanya ventures back and inadvertently strolls on a mine. Realizing there's no chance to get out, she utilizes her radio to express farewell to her sibling, and when the robot comes sufficiently close, she eliminates her foot. The mine detonates and cuts them both down. The blast has offered their area, and the commander starts flying the boat toward the sanctuary. Mark figures they ought to leave, yet Sua makes sense of his kin will defend constantly the passages. Seeing as the odds are low at any rate, Imprint requests the serum so he can attempt to place it in the gun while everybody keeps the outsider occupied with battling. The cartels start laying out snares all around the passages and Imprint leaves the kid with the regular folks in a room at the back. Mark figures out how to leave the refuge just before the outsider robots start descending the passages. The explosives cause a considerable amount of harm, and the cartels polish the robots off with their guns. Then Sua prepares to light a fire by the entry, yet an outsider shocks them by entering the passage through an opening it makes in the roof. The outsider kills a lot of individuals before it finds Sua, who battles it and guides it back to the entry so he can overcome it by setting it ablaze. Since such countless warriors passed on, Sua liberates Juana to request that he battle as well. Then every one of the survivors start clearing through a secret passage. In the meantime, Imprint slips around the sanctuary and enters the spaceship through a secondary passage. Recollecting what Jared stamped, opens a passage on the wall and takes it to arrive at the gun room. This is seen by one of the many gatekeepers. At that point the cannon sends a light on a mission to attempt to condition the survivors that are emerging, yet everybody makes sure to shut their eyes. The kid doesn't on the grounds that she can shield herself by making her eyes sparkle red. One of the cartels shoots a rocket at the light to obliterate it, however before everybody can get away, one more monster robot seems steered by the skipper and starts annihilating the spot. Everybody starts to battle the multitude of robots that shows up with the Goliath one, and when one of them is going to arrive at Audrey and the youngster, Harper hinders it to save them, passing on all the while. Inside the boat, the gatekeeper tracks down Imprint and goes after him. During the battle, Imprint drops Rosa's ring, and seeing it makes the gatekeeper falter. Mark understands this as Trent, yet since the kid can't totally shake off the control yet, Imprint needs to drive him away into the lower level to save himself. Then, at that point, he snatches an egg from the plants, infuses the serum into it, and tosses it into the pillar, changing the light tone from blue to red. Trent promptly recuperates his recollections, yet before the light can arrive at the others, the chief purposes his robot to break the pillar cannon, making Imprint leap off the boat not to bite the dust alongside it. Then Imprint finds a wrecked robot and takes its edge so he can join the battle. He, Sua, and Juana cooperate to protect the young ladies, and when the chief draws nearer with its Goliath robot, it's unexpectedly hit continuously 1, It's Trent, who has taken its own monster from the boat. As the two monsters start battling, the skipper rapidly overwhelms Trent. Mark gives Sue the edge before he goes searching for the rocket launcher, which he takes shots at the commander's robot to allow his child an opportunity. Sue and Hawana continue to battle the human-brained robots, yet sadly Hawana is encircled and bites the dust. Audrey puts down the youngster to assist with the battle, however when she pivots, the youngster leaves. Disregarding the fight around her, the youngster arrives at the fallen gun and initiates it once more. The commander sees this and comes to kill her, yet Imprint rushes to safeguard her and Trent pushes the chief to the ground. Then, at that point, Trent gets the gun and takes shots at the skipper, at last killing it. This shot likewise causes a red light to show up overhead, which liberates every one of the human cerebrums from the psyche control. Father and child at last rejoin, and when Audrey gets the youngster, she chooses to name her Rose. A few months after the fact, Rose is presently a young lady and skipper of a boat they've worked with the bits of the Outsider 1. Her team is framed by people yet in addition by everyone individuals caught in the robot bodies, similar to Trent. Together they're at long last prepared to travel to the Outsider's home planet and prevent them from returning at any point in the future.